Welcome to Scoop World Order. We got the Bloody Tuesday doubleheader today. We have the bank starting it off, hitting leadoff spot. We have Nevada coming in about 45 minutes. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. We are going to get the bank's feedback on the Indiana game, on a little bit of recruiting news, what's going on in the Big Ten. Can we fix this offense? Defense looked great. Obviously Youngstown State, Western Kentucky, the next 2 weeks, Patsies, easy ones. Before we head to South Bend and see Marcus Freeman Notre Dame, we looked pretty good. Got a really good quarterback. It's going to be a very interesting deal. With that being said, I appreciate you guys so much. Our videos have been going absolutely crazy. Let me click on that. And I appreciate all of you guys that are clicking like and subscribe and also clicking our little alert bell. Those are all huge for this channel. This channel is growing by leaps and bounds thanks to you guys. So keep spreading the good word. We appreciate all of you as always. But without further delay, I have to get right to my good friend, Bill the Bank Greene, fellow Maslin Perry alum, a guy who watched the game, might have a few more gray hairs after watching that game. You know, he's not a diehard Ohio State guy. I don't think that he took the points. Your initial thought on the performance: the offensive line was terrible. Defense played well. We didn't get Marvin and Emeka involved at all, which was insane. Coming out of that thing, obviously big, it's not a big one, but 23-3, whatever it was, 21-3, 23-3. What were your initial takeaways once you turned off the TV and you're like, okay, is this what we are? Can we get better? Can we get back to being high flying? Where was Devin Brown? What was your initial thoughts after you finished the game before you rewatched the second time?
It was interesting that everything I thought I saw the first time, I saw when I watched it the second time. It usually doesn't work out that way. Yeah. Another thing I want to add is it's week one. Okay, high school, they play 3 scrimmages. NFL plays 3 preseason games. Oh. It's week one, man. And there's only one thing that week one means anything, and that's if you lose. And I mean, Clemson is looking at, they've got a mountain to climb right now, and so does LSU. Those kids right now are thinking, we've got to be perfect from now till Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. And that's a mountain to climb. When you lose early, I mean, especially when you have playoff national championship hopes, when you lose, I mean, it's a mountain ahead of you. So for Ohio State, like, there's nothing we saw last Saturday is going to have any relation to anything we see against Michigan. Unless you lose, then it changes everything for you. So a September performance, as long as you win, whether you're Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, these power teams, just win and move on. But my thoughts are probably the same as yours. The offensive line, I mean, although I thought Carson Hinsman was really good.
Yeah.
First time on the field. Now, he's your starting center this year. He didn't play one play last year. Not one. Which makes no sense at all. When he played 4 games in redshirt and at least play him something. So they must not have thought he was going to be a contributor this year, or they would have played him something last year. This guy's out here naked for the first time in his life, and he played really well. So happy for him. I thought Matt Jones was okay. Donovan Jackson, I don't know if he played with like drops in his eyes. He couldn't see. He hadn't caught up with that delayed blitzing linebacker. He ain't caught up with that guy yet. He made All-American out of that guy. So the tackles we were worried about, Fryer's Fryer. I think we know who he is. Jimmy Josh Simmons, I mean, I think my expectations were so low for him that I didn't freak out about him the way everybody else did. I think there's hope for Jimmy Josh there. He didn't have any penalties. He had 17 last year. So, he's getting better. But, defensively, Tom Allen did not try to win the game.
No.
He got beat 56-14 last week. He was probably the happiest coach in America Saturday night that he didn't get murdered. He played the play clock. He hardly ever threw the ball.
Yep.
That guy was thrilled to lose 24-3. So, defensively, there was nothing to gain from that. Those two quarterbacks were awful for Indiana, and they didn't even let them try to do anything to be not awful. So crazy, weird, boring game. That's been a long time since there's been a really boring Ohio State game. That game was so boring to watch, and then I had to watch it twice. It was like, man, can't sleep tonight, man. I'm putting that one on for sure. But it was just a boring, dead. I never saw so many passes thrown less than 8 yards in my life on both teams. So just a weird one, but you won. You're not getting out of bed today feeling like Clemson feels or how LSU feels. So you beat them up in practice all week, kick some tail. And, they should blast YSU next week. And then, you get ready for Western Kentucky. The thing about Western Kentucky is I'm looking forward to that game because they're not very good, but they're going to throw it 60 times. And they will push the ball down the field. So you're going to learn a little bit about those DBs against Western Kentucky. I don't know what you learned this week. You just win. You try not to get anybody hurt, and you move on. It's early September, and it's like building a house, man. You put bricks down every week. Don't take a step back. You just got to win. You got to win. You got to move on. You get better in practice, right? You've been through it before.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And honestly,
practice should be spirited.
Oh, it better be. I mean, this is like training camp because you're not going to play like USC week 2 or Texas week 2. Like you're playing Youngstown State, like so you can put the screws to these kids because if somebody gets dinged or hurt, like you can put in the backup and somebody at Youngstown State. I think that your point was something I've been saying on the board on BuckeyeScoop.com about Tom Allen not caring if he won, but he just didn't want to get. He didn't want to because he can go and like Matt Garriani, who was sitting in our staff room last year, can go to all these recruits and say, "Hey, you see Marvin Harrison and Emeka, 2 best receivers in America, 34 yards combined. Hey, you see that clock running and triple option and." I'm surprised they weren't trying to like take a knee in the middle of the drive to run the clock out because again, they just wanted to melt that clock. Ohio State's offense was struggling. Aaron Casey. I joked Aaron Casey should invite the O-line to his draft party because he got drafted off that tape. And again, I'm not trying to be like that guy, but that guy he was triggering and our combination blocks were terrible and
he was. I mean, it made plays.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Congrats to him. Props to him, man. I mean, they couldn't figure out where he was coming from, although he was right in front of their eyes.
Yeah.
He didn't come off the edge. I mean, it was like right in the middle of the field. He just walked through the A gap in the middle of the field and like, okay, I'll tackle this guy.
Yeah.
So a lot to learn on, a lot to build on. You know what I mean? I don't think we know what Ohio State is right now. Are they a playoff team? How do you know? You know what I mean? I don't know what Alabama is. Neither is Nick Saban. It's a long season.
Yeah.
And, it gets longer when you lose early. That's all I can say. Ohio State's going to be 3-0 going to Notre Dame with plenty of stuff to kick some tail in practice and get better on.
Yeah.
And that's what you want.
Well, again, it's hard because it's all scrambled up when you're looking at it with your film. And again, I apologize that you work for us and you have to watch that game twice because it was painful. I watched it about 3 times, and it's hard to watch bad football 3 times. But, in 14, because again, the point you always make is in the last 50 years or so, we've won 2 national championships, 02 and 14. And in 14, when we gave up 370 yards on the ground to Navy, and then we lost to Virginia Tech, like, you weren't saying, hey, let me go cash out my 401k and my life savings and go put it on Ohio State to win the title at 75-1, because that's where they were after they lost to Virginia Tech at home. And then the next week, Virginia Tech in Blacksburg plays East Carolina, and Lincoln Riley was the OC, and they beat Virginia Tech in Blacksburg. So it's like, I'm like, God, we might lose 9 games. Urban might not make it to the end of the year. He might resign, get fired, like. So again, you
never know. These are like preseason games unless you lose.
Yes.
Then they count double. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and another thing in that, you go back to that Urban team that won it all. They lost Braxton Miller for like 10 days before the opener, and late in the year you lose JT Barrett before you're ready to roll into the playoffs. I mean, that was just, you never know, man. There's no way to figure this stuff out. I mean, it's a long season. I mean, it really is. It's a long season, and nothing that we saw last weekend from any team, Georgia, Bama, Indiana, Ohio State, has nothing to do with what they're going to be toward the end of the year. Right now, man, I just say win and move on. Win and move on.
Yep.
And, you know, God bless LSU and Clemson, man. Don't want to be in that spot today.
Oh, God, especially Clemson, because Clemson, like LSU, they're the ones that took the big swing and played Florida State, two top 7 teams. I mean, Clemson's like, well, we'll go play the Dukies, and we'll go play them at Duke, and we're 9th in the country, and Dukies are unrated. And, I mean, Duke, it wasn't like some miraculous, trick play. I mean, Duke whooped Clemson in front of the entire world watching. So
yeah, they were the better team.
Oh, God. Yeah, I mean, Mike Elko's, his agent has had probably more phone calls today than he's had his entire career because, I mean, Duke out-physicaled Clemson. And Clemson, as you and I know, 5-star guys, big-time guys, Blake Miller, Xavier Thomas, guys that, Ohio State would kill to get, and they got massacred by the Dukies.
Yeah, that's a nasty one. So, anyway, like I say, you move it on. You don't burn the tape, but you learn from the tape.
Oh, yeah.
I think anyone saying today that, Ohio State sucks and they're going to lose 4 games, you can't say that. You know what I mean? We don't know. Nobody knows. You know what I mean? If you get Ryan Day on here right now, give him truth serum, where he has to answer honestly, he doesn't know what this team's going to be. Nobody does. Nick Saban doesn't know what he has right now. You build that house, man. It's brick by brick by brick by brick by brick. And you see where you end up. I mean, so I wasn't impressed with Ohio State. I'll be honest with you. There wasn't much to be impressed about. And that's good because you beat the heck out of the practice this week. Nobody got big heads on that offense. Ain't no big-headed dude there. And they're used to walking out there and throwing 50 up on about everybody.
Yeah.
So that sure didn't happen.
Well, and the weird thing to me is if I said, Bill, you have to bet your life savings and your family's lives on the 2 lowest rated offensive linemen, Josh Fryer actually graded out as a champion. He's the only guy in the O-line that was a champion. And then,
Hinsman was better to me. What did you think when you saw? I thought Hinsman was their best.
I thought Josh was very good. I thought Carson had a few moments where he was okay. I think Carson, the hard part of being a center is you get graded out on your snaps, you get graded out on some of your calls. If you miss calls, then you get graded down as a misassignment on that. So that can crucify your grade if you miss a gap call. Because the one Devin Brown's third play of the game where it was a Q run, we didn't make a gap call, and I was like, well, that is day one stuff in the gap scheme, which we haven't run the gap scheme in 5 years, and we're starting to run it again. And Carson didn't make a back call, and Jimmy Simmons didn't cut the guy off, and Devin took the snap and got tackled 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage because we didn't change it. So again, the centers are tough. I used to grade Michael Brewster, and Michael Brewster, if he had a bad snap, it was an MA, misassignment, minus, and that destroys your grade. Absolutely destroys it. So I know Justin Fry's probably got a similar grading system to what we had, what me and Ed Warner had, what Stud had. So center's a tough gig sometimes, unless you're really good, like Nick Mangold's fantastic at it. But if I said, hey, bet your house on who's going to grade out the high school, you'd say, well, Donnie and Matt, because Donnie's preseason All-American, Matt's a six-year graduate senior. So, if you say, hey, Kirk, who's going to be the 2 best guys? Well, the 2 old guys, or the guy that's the preseason All-American on Phil Steele Athlon, every publication on demand, and they were our 2 worst guys. I mean, those guys were worse than Jimmy Simmons, who was never played in the Big Ten before. And I mean, that can't happen. Donnie can't play like an undrafted free agent again. He has to play like a first rounder, like everyone's projecting him to be. And again, I root for Donnie. He wears 74. He wears my number. You have that little stupid little brotherhood thing. Like Johnny Hicks used to work for me. John Hicks said I was his favorite player when I played because I wore 74. So you root for me. So Donnie, I root for Donnie to be great. And he was terrible. It was awful. And again, he knows it better than anybody because Yeah, he doesn't want to put that film out there for NFL GMs. Like, are you crazy? Like, where he's getting held up and he's not coming off on combination blocks and whatever. Like, I mean, a lot of that stuff was easy. It wasn't like it was some exotic, crazy thing that they've never worked or seen before. So I think the line is going to get whipped pretty hard this week in practice. I think that if Ryan's smart, he's got to put the screws to these guys. They probably had a very physical practice today. I'll check on some of my people that were at practice today. But the line, and the other thing that was shocking is like I felt like our receivers were just not involved. And when these guys aren't involved, their body language
was all checked out, just over. I mean, it was
check down Charlie.
I mean, Emeka, I think, only got targeted 4 times. Tate 3. Stover, I think, was targeted the most with 8. Marvin, I think 6 or 7. It was just a weird game, and you hate to harp on all these negatives. If you're going to throw a positive out there on offense, I thought it was DeMonte Trayanum.
Oh God, yeah.
I thought he ran hard, and that's only half of it. You know what I mean? Mayan runs hard, but Mayan has a hard time making people miss, and Trayanum made people miss as well as running physical. I mean, he was their best back by far. Yeah. It wasn't even close. Mm-hmm. I mean, and he did get to run a lot in the fourth quarter against a kind of a beat down Indiana defense. They had kind of were gassed by then, but still he made cuts. He made the first guy miss, which is what you have to do, which Trey Henderson has a hard time doing. So very impressed with Diamante Trayanum, and I want to see, has he earned more carries going forward? He had double the carries of Mayan. You never saw Evan Pryor or Dallin Hayden. So is Trayanum the clear 2 right now ahead of Mayan? That's interesting to see.
I think Chip is the guy that you gotta. His utility is unbelievable. He can play fullback. He can play wing tight end. Played linebacker. He's covered kickoffs. He's been a kick returner. It's like that kid is the kind of kid that'll do anything to get on the field. He's not scared to get his nails dirty. Like some of our guys are scared to get their nails dirty. They're scared to block. They're scared to whatever. Chip will do anything, and I love guys like that. And he's.
Does that hurt him being able to do so much where they look at him as a utility guy rather than a main guy? You know what I mean?
It could.
You worry about him getting typecast. Well, he can play on the wing. He can be a fullback. Yeah. Get him in there for second tight end. Is he a 20 carry back? I mean, he looked good against Michigan with no reps all year, half the year as a linebacker.
Yeah.
And then the other day, I mean, he ran hard, and that's only half of it, but he ran smart too. And he saw things. He saw openings that, you watch Trey Henderson for 3 quarters and another one. You think him and Donnie Jackson played with their eyes closed or something. And Trey might just be Trey at this point. You know what I mean? Explosive, burst, but does he have the vision to see it? So that's where if you want to talk positive, very impressed with DeMonte Trayanum. And I'm trying to figure out if he's a bell cow back or is he, like we talked, the swing guy that can do a little of everything? I don't know.
Well, I mean, for me, Trey, if I'm an NFL GM, Trey Henderson is probably the first guy to take. I'd take Chip over any of the other tailbacks in that room. Because Chip, when you line those guys up and they do combine drills, they do the 40 L drill, 225, Chip will kill all those guys. Like Chip is a freaky athlete. Again, I always think, and I'm trying not to say this too many times, that there's a stigma against Ohio kids and because they're from Ohio. If that kid was from Georgia and he came from Buford or something, he'd be 4.5, 5 stars, like freak of nature, like monster. And he played at Hoban, which is one of the best programs in the country. But there's that little, he had to go out to Arizona State. He didn't go to Georgia. Oh,
look at his film as a running back as a freshman in Pac-12. He's pretty freaking good.
Well, yeah. And his running back partner is starting for the Buccaneers. They split time together, and he was a year or 2 old or whatever he was, and he starts for the Bucs now, and he's a really good player, and he's going to be probably their leading rusher this year. So it wasn't like he was splitting with some walk-on, wannabe. I mean,
it was a good team, and he had time as a freshman. So I don't know. That's something I want to see going forward. Is does he end up being, the backup fullback or the starting fullback when they need it, and kind of a backup tailback, and maybe sneak him in at linebacker? Is he the utility guy or is he a freaking player?
Yeah.
That's what we need to see with that guy. And maybe he ends up splitting reps with Trey Henderson the rest of the year. We'll
I would be all for that because I think Mine Williams is a very nice kid. I
He
don't think he's
definitely,
I don't think he's our second best tailback. And again, I
no,
think that his numbers got buoyed. It was real strange because like they had Trey and Chip in there all the way until they got down into that tight red zone, and then they hand it to Mine, and Mine gets the two cheap
but I love
scores.
mine there. I love mine as your short yardage goal line dude.
Yeah.
I think less mine, I think, is more. He gets
Yes.
hurt. He gets hurt. He gets beat up with that running style. So I don't
Yeah.
want mine getting 15, 20 carries a game. And then by the end of the year, he's beat.
Yeah.
And keep him fresh. Keep him as your 3rd-and-1 guy, your inside the 5 guy. I think there's a place for all three of them. I really do. Especially if Ryan will commit to running the football.
Yeah. Do you think any of the they ran a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, 2-3 tight ends. They had Luke Montgomery as the one play in goal line. They had him as a jumbo tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that is something that we're going to see a lot of? Do you think that's an overreaction to trying to get right for Michigan? Like, what was your reaction to that? Because again, I applaud Ryan Day for protecting the tackles. We're running more 2 tight end stuff, more inside run stuff, more chips, more, we had the tight end staying in the wing to help these tackles out. But do you think that is just a reaction? Because obviously if they're running that against Indiana, they did a lot of it in camp. That's what Michigan does every single day. Was that a reaction by Ryan Day to get our defense ready to stop that stuff? Because we've been putrid against the run the last years against Michigan. And I think part of it is because we were so spread out, chuck and duck, high flying. And now it's like we're doing, 2 tight ends and hand it off and put Chip at fullback and whatever. Do you think that's a reaction to Michigan, or do you think that's just purely what this offense is morphing into?
Well, maybe they really don't know right now what their identity is. You know what I mean? To me, I think it's easier to run out of 4 wides.
Yes.
Tate, Fleming, Marvin, and Mecca spread out all over the field, and you've got to cover those guys.
Yep.
You ain't putting, your box is clear then. That's when I think it's easier to run that way rather than the 2 tight ends when everybody's jammed into a phone booth. And I think it's harder to run that way. I think out of 4 wides, spread that field, and you want to single up with Marvin? No, that's okay. We'll audible out of it. We'll throw to him. So we'll see. I don't know that Ryan really knows what he has right now. It's such a new dynamic. You sent 3 linemen to the NFL. You replaced them. Fryer played a lot last year. Carson Hinsman never played it down. Jimmy Simmons is only, he's a newcomer.
Yep.
And then you swap out CJ for Kyle McCord. So it's a new offense, man. So maybe Ryan is kind of picking and grabbing right now, trying to see what he has. And again, you don't need to be right for Indiana. You need to be right for Notre Dame.
Yep.
So I think people need to look at it that way rather than overreacting, which is what everybody does after week 1. I get that. But instead of overreacting, maybe it's kind of pick and grab right now for Ryan Day, trying to see what he's got. And you played before, so you know what you think you have in practice. Sometimes that's not what you have when the lights come on and it gets bright. So we'll see. I'm not as freaked out as everybody else is because it's week 1.
And honestly, that's the most important line of the entire thing is you can flush the whole tape down the toilet. You're better than Clemson. You're better than LSU today. I mean, those guys are going to drop in the rankings. And again, 04, classic example. You look at that team that started the season. It was Justin Zwick at quarterback, Roy Hall at wide receiver, Bam Childress at wide receiver, whoever, Lydell Ross at running back. You look at week 8, it's Troy Smith, it's Ted Ginn, it's Anthony Gonzalez. It's I came in at right tackle week 4 and became the starter. So it's like, Antonio Pittman played more. I mean, all of a sudden it's like, when you're a young team and you're evolving and there's a lot of snaps to be had and a lot of evolution, like there's nothing written in ink that says that this is how it's going to stay. Because again, there's some guys that didn't produce and they're going to play less, and there's going to be guys going to play more. And again, it'll be very interesting to see how. The thing that I'm dying to know is what is the snap count going to look like this week at quarterback? Is it still going to be Devin Brown 66 and excuse me, Devin Brown 6 and Kyle McCord 66 or 64, whatever the number was? I mean, or is it going to be a little bit more?
Maybe Devin Brown starts this week, and they say, "Look, we're rotating. We'll see where we're at for Notre Dame." I don't think you're going to see it the way it was last week, where Kyle McCord gets 95% of the snaps and Devin gets 5%. And a lot of that, I think, was probably game script. If it's 35-2, in the middle of the third quarter, maybe that makes it easier to play Devin.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, this is a new team. It's an evolving team. So I don't know. I don't know that Ryan Day knows. He's going to pick and grab, and you figure it out as you go, like every team in the country does.
Absolutely.
This is what you do, man. This is what it happens. It's the way it is.
Yeah, you got to go coach football this year, man. You don't have overwhelming. You don't have Paris and CJ and DeWan and Jackson Smith and Jigba, and you don't have that overwhelming talent they had last year. Especially because when you have that number 2 pick at quarterback, you have overwhelming advantage in every team you play. Well, I'm going to wrap this bank. Anything on Brandon Baker? Because that's one guys everyone knows about. I know you don't have anything.
No,
you still feeling good on that.
I do. I'd like to see if there are an unofficial visit or two that pop up. I'd like to see that. He does have one official I know is coming in 2 weeks to Nebraska. I can't believe for the life of me that kid's going to go to freaking Nebraska.
Yeah,
with the choices he has. I mean, so is that a window dressing visit? I have to think it is. I would love to see Ohio State get him back somewhere. He's already taken his official. So I think they're getting him. It makes a lot of sense. I thought they were getting him more when I thought it was a 2-team race between Ohio State and Oregon. Now with Texas in the mix, and that Texas NIL, man, they're good.
Yeah.
They got a lot of money. And those guys want to be good again. So that's kind of concerning. That is kind of concerning. So we'll see. But I think Ohio State makes a lot of sense. They've done a great job recruiting him. Fry's known the family, known the kid for a long time from his days on the West Coast. So it makes a lot of sense that Ohio State would get Brandon Baker.
All right. That's a little shot in the arm to end this thing. Any final thoughts, Bank, as we go into week 2?
Week 1's over, and Ohio State's undefeated. Build that house.
Hey, like you said, it's better than being LSU or Clemson or some of these 0-1 teams.
Sure, and you played before, so you can put yourself in those kids' shoes. They have worked so hard since last January. And those teams are thinking playoffs. Now, LSU knew they were going to be in for a tough game. You know what I mean? I would never schedule one of those games myself. But anyway, I mean, for the Clemson kids to go get spanked like that by Duke, and you still got Florida State left, you got Notre Dame left, those kids have to feel pretty defeated today. They've been thinking playoffs, and now they must run the table between now and all the way up into December to the ACC championship game. And that's a mountain, man. That's a mountain to climb. Ohio State's going to win this week. They're going to beat Western Kentucky. Ohio State's going to cruise all the way up to almost October. Clemson, the cruising's over. There's no cruising in Clemson today. And even LSU, with that schedule they run, I knew they thought there was a chance they'd lose that game. But, man, once you lose it, and you must be perfect from today through early December, that's a mountain. And I think that almost has to defeat kids mentally who've been thinking playoffs since last January. So BK got a coach now. Dabo got a coach now. You're going to do some serious coaching. So we'll see. But I would not overreact to week 1. I've seen so many week 1s. They mean nothing unless you lose. That's my final thought. That's my final thought.
So if you're Bill the Bank Greene, the guy that you'd give the raise to this year is the guy who's the athletic director for Georgia, because you've seen their schedule and you're just like,
Wow.
Wow. Talk about skating into that number 1 seed in the playoffs, man. I mean, they don't have a game until the SEC championship, basically. And then
It's crazy. That is the cake schedule I've seen in the last decade. Yeah, that's great scheduling there. That's great scheduling.
Yeah, it's like Banks said, man. 12-1, they could lose in the SEC title game. They'll still get into the playoffs. So that's how.
They better take the car keys away from everybody, and everybody on that team should be Ubering from the coach. They have another guy. You see, they had another. They had
it was one of your Steelers, Jarvis Jones. He's first-round pick for the Steelers.
What are you doing there? You know what I mean?
My God.
Kirby's got to be ready to just annihilate somebody. I would take all the keys, all the cars away from every staff member and every player.
God.
We're Ubering. We're not driving anywhere anymore. This is ridiculous what they're doing.
It's insane.
It's not just a couple speeding tickets or around red. People died not too long ago.
Terrible.
People died. What are you doing there? I mean, I think it's such a huge black mark on Kirby Smart, and I don't care if he's won back-to-back titles. I mean, that's amazing, but he's got to get this bull crap stopped. And
Absolutely.
It's a bunch of bull crap. I mean, that this keeps happening and happening and happening, and it's more than just speeding tickets or reckless op. People have died. They've been to funerals there. They've went to funerals for people they know. Yeah. So I don't know how we got into that, but
no, but you're right, man. I'm telling you, he's got it rocking, and it's like the only way he can screw it up is by people doing dumb stuff off the field. That's it. Period. End. And there's a massive lawsuit against the university. So I mean,
sure.
Again,
another one of those. You want to go to more funeral?
God
take the car
bless.
Take the car keys. It's Uber time.
I agree with you, Bank. Well, appreciate you, brother. As always, killing it. Bill the Bank Greene bringing the heat today. Appreciate you, Bank. As always, we are going to take a little break, and we're going to bring in Nevadabuck here in about 10 minutes or so. If you guys are tuned in, jump on here in about 10 minutes. We'll be right back. But appreciate you guys. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please click like, click subscribe. Also, click that alert bell. I want to hear your MVPs of the game and what needs to change as we get ready for that Notre Dame game in about 3 weeks. It's coming here faster than you know it. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in. Massive numbers on YouTube. Thanks to you guys spreading the good word. Appreciate you guys subscribing to us. Shout out where you guys are watching from. As always, again, can't tell you how much we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. And thank you, Scoop family. See you in about 15 with Nevadabuck. Go Bucks.